Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for Photoville for inviting us to do this. My name's Emma Rains. I'm the Director of Programs at the Magnum Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization that expands diversity and creativity in documentary photography. So wave Taslima, say hi. This is Taslima Akhter. I met her first during the Magnum Foundation Photography and Social Justice Program in 2011, and we are so excited to have her back here in New York with us. Taslima is an activist and a photographer who has spent over 10 years advocating for garment workers in Bangladesh. Taslima is also a writer and a professor. She teaches visual anthropology and photojournalism and visual communications. And I think most importantly, especially today, she's the president and the founder of a grassroots organization called Bangladesh Garment Workers Solidarity. This organization advocates for health, legal support, children's education of the families of garment workers. It also supports the documentation, preservation, and research about the history of the garment workers' labor movement. At Photoville, we are exhibiting an exhibition of hers called Stitching Together. The exhibit shows memory quilts she made with the surviving families of workers who died in the Rana Plaza collapse, a factory disaster that killed and injured over 2,000 people in 2013 in Bangladesh. And to my right, Robin, wave hi. Robin Berson is a historian, an activist, artist, and a quilter. Robin is a member of the Remember the Triangle Fire Coalition, an organization that educates the public about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which is a fire in a factory near Washington Square Park that killed 146 workers, mostly immigrants and women, in 1911. As part of her work with the coalition, Robin made a quilt that commemorates the Triangle Fire. And Robin also produced a sister quilt about the 2013 Rana Plaza collapse. It sort of stands as a contemporary pairing with the Triangle Fire quilt and a testament to the fact that labor rights and safety issues persist, and there's still so much more to be done for garment workers. And this quilt, this sister quilt that she created, is how she met Taslima as she was sourcing photographs to use. Of course, through their dialogue, they became friends, and Robin helped Taslima learn quilting techniques that she used in to produce the quilts that you see in the exhibition. And what was really interesting to me is the experimental aspect of their work. Really, Robin and Taslima in their work are merging two forms, combining documentary photography and quilting. From speaking to them about their work, I've learned that quilting shares a lot of values with documentary photography. Quilting can be a form of witnessing and protest, and the collective and participatory process that Robin and Taslima use can also lead to healing and justice. So without much more, I want to introduce Taslima to begin and share work.
Hello, everybody. I'm Taslima. I'm from Bangladesh. First of all, I want to give a special thanks to Magnum and Photoville organizer who makes this program possible. And I also want to give special thanks to Susan, Emma, Mong, Simon, and all other team of Magnum who work hard, very hard, for organizing the exhibition and all these things, talks. I'm really grateful to them because I'm here to talk about stories, life of our garment workers. So Magnum give me this scope. And I also want to give a special thanks to Robin. I'm really honored that I'm here beside of Robin. All of you know that she's a great historian, activist, and somehow I introduced with her when I was thinking about quilt, and I saw her work about triangle sweater dead workers. All of you know that he made a great quilt to remember all those workers who lost their life in Triangle Sweater when fire broke out. This is how we introduce ourselves. Before talking about the memorial quilt, which I think all of you get scope to see it in Photoville. It's artwork, but it's not only a artwork. It's more than an artwork. It's talk about the life, talk about the dead workers who was under the rubble in 24th April 2013. It's talk about the justice for workers. So it's not only about artwork, it's like a protest also. So before talking about this memorial quilt, how we build it, it's a collective work. It's not my own work. I, with the survivors and survivors' family member, all of we worked together. First, when we started to think about doing something to observe the anniversary of Rana Plaza collapse, that time we were thinking about do something new, because each year we do something to remember those people who died, and we don't want to forget them. So we tried to do something new, and this year we made this memorial quilt. And when we were thinking about the memorial quilt, the idea was not shaped, but after sitting together, talking together, and doing many workshops, then we finally shaped the idea, and that is in the Photoville workshop. Before talking about the quilt much more, I want to show you a few of my works that I've been doing for last 11 years. Last 11 years, I'm working on garment workers' life and struggle. I want to show a few of my works. It's from 2008 to 2012. My journey with my camera is not very much long. I stepped in photography world like 11 years ago. Before that, I was a student activist. I was involved with left-leaning student organization. From that time, I thought that I will involve myself with working class people, because if I want to change something, change my society, if I want to do something for myself, I have to involve myself with the big part of the population and with the working class women, working class people. It was a thought when I was a student, but that time I was not that much involved with photography. In 2008, there was a military government in our country. Military government took power, and freedom of expression was restricted at that time. And I was very much interested to learn photography, and I thought maybe it's a scope to explore my interest about photography. Then after completing my study from university, I started study again photography. It was a very new experience for me. In every year, in every time, when I started with a very small basic course, 1 month course. After that, I started a 1 year long course, and sometimes I shared with my friends that I will not continue photography because there is enough photographer but not enough activists. So I sometimes tell them that I will left photography very soon. But somehow I feel I fall in love with photography, and I found that photography is a very strong tool through which I can tell about my love, about my anger, about my protest and everything. So it's become an instrument for me as an activist also. So I started taking and documenting garment workers' life and their struggle. First few years, I tried to see their daily life, what they are doing inside their house, because it is not so easy to go inside a factory. So I tried to understand their life from their small room. I tried to understand their struggle from street. And that time they were doing wage movement and other things. After 2012, I have to give focus on safety issue because on that time there was a fire broke out in a factory that's called Tazreen factory. More than 100 workers died in Tazreen, and we thought it's a big thing. But when Rana Plaza happened, all of you know that in 2013, more than 1,100 workers died, and it crossed the limit. So from my side, as a photographer, as a witness, and as an activist, I tried to document the safety issue also. And in the meantime, I also tried to collect few photographs from workers' family album. And they usually took this photo from local studio very close. And I tried to understand how actually I try to take photo and how they want to represent themselves. Nobody wants to show them as a bad way. They always want to show them as a dignified way. So when we saw they are taking photo by themselves from our studio, you can see this photo which I took and which they took from studio. There is a difference. So I'm trying to collect some photo to understand them. This is a photo of a dead worker. I have collected her photo from her family. This is from Rana Plaza. More than 1,100 workers died. She is missing Shanta. She is a mother of dead worker. From the end of the 2008, I have also started learning photography, and some of our friends, we started an organization with workers. It's like a trade union organization, and from our organization, we give focus on wage, safety, and trade union issue. And when Rana Plaza happened, that time we tried to make a dead and missing list. It was a very hard thing for us as a garment organization to do it, but we have collected almost all missing workers' photo like this way. She is Millie. She also worked in the factory. She lost her husband in the rubble. All of you know about this photo. I don't think so. I need to talk more about this photo. After 1 year, we have published this compiled edition on Rana Plaza. It's a book. It's named 1,000 Cries. You can find it www.1000cries.org in English version. It's a Bangla book on Rana Plaza collapse. We have published it from our garment organization, and we use lots of photos in this. I started collecting photo from Rana Plaza survivors and the family member. Last year we launched this website, the English version of the book. Part of this, many of our friends, they work together to make it possible. This is a book named Life's Not Numbers. I attended a book workshop last year, and that time I made this book. This is also on Rana Plaza. I think now Robin can say something about her work. Then we can go again to the memorial quilt that we build up together. I like to know more about Robin's work.
Okay. Oh, okay. Can I have the clicker thing? Okay. What you guys are going to see, I should tell you, this is going to be less than the Reader's Digest version, because I've taught whole courses on the history of protest quilts. Quilts, almost from the very beginning, had text in them. Quilts were documents and are documents and text to this day. This is, we're just going to do it as they come. This is from Chile after the downfall, the CIA-inspired coup against Salvador Allende in 1973. All of these things, the South American arpayeras, they're called. Arpayeras is the Spanish word for burlap. It's a coarse fabric. The prison guards didn't care that people who visited the people in prison were bringing scraps like this and giving them to women, and the women were using, one of the things that you will find, whether it's South America or Cambodia or South Africa or Northern Ireland, wherever we go, it doesn't matter. People use their traditional tools, the traditional artistic language that they're used to, they bend to the purposes that they need to. And here we have what looks like a very cheery domestic scene, except you will notice that the portrait in the back is colorless. It's black and white. It's like a ghost. That's the missing person. And the iconography is very, very consistent. Here are some more, and each of them says, "Donde están?" Where are these people? Where are they? And they are all colorless. They're black and white as well. And this, the little label above it says, "Aquí se torturan." This is a woman depicting her own torture. The prison guards devalued women's work so that they didn't even care that visitors were bringing these things that women had made out of prison. And actually, a lot of Chilean church members were in on the whole deal, and they managed to see to it that there were workshops where these things continued to be produced and were sold to tourists who got them out of the country, who got the message out of the country. The guards didn't care because they didn't think that anything that women did was worth worrying about. This is La Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and these are the grandmothers of the disappeared. I won't anguish you with my Spanish. We know that under Pinochet, under various dictators, a great many people, young adults, teachers, artists, were taken, and their children were taken. And these are the grandmothers looking for the disappeared grandchildren. They've almost given up finding their children, but there are thousands of children missing. And there's even a movement now with American organizations using DNA and looking for genetic matches of children who have lost their birthright but might be someone else's child. So to date, they have found 70 or 90 missing children. This next one is from Northern Ireland. This is Shannon Airport. These are all out of order, but it doesn't matter. You get the idea. And this is in protest of the CIA doing stopovers on their way to rendition, black sites and rendition sites during the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. And the people surrounding, walking around there are ghosts because they've been disappeared too. We don't know who they are. They are lost to their families. And it's a protest by a Northern Irish woman. This is Cambodia, and it's a traditional Cambodian story cloth, colorful, nice gay figures. Everything looks fine until you look a little closely, and you will see that there are airplanes bombing the people, and there are people desperately trying to get away, and there are soldiers shooting people. And it's all done in traditional folk style. And the same thing here, too. I will go by there. This is completely different. And again, we're in a completely different part of the world with different folk traditions, and they are still using those traditions to say what they have to say. This is in Bosnia. There's an organization called BOSFAM, which is modeled after Oxfam, and it tries to support women who have lost their husbands and sons in the Serbian massacre of Bosnian Muslims in 1995, and they weave and embroider there. So these are woven quilts using the names of lost family members, sons and husbands and fathers. And in the site, I intended to give you a bibliography, but there's no time for that. There's a wonderful site you can find online called Conflict Textiles. It's run out of Northern Ireland, and they just have amazing resources. You can float your mouse, if you're online, you can float your mouse over any one of those names and get a birth and death date and other biographical information about the person. They are very, very determined that these people will not be lost forever. And this is Northern Ireland. This is a Northern Irish, a Catholic quilt about people who have been killed in the Troubles in the 1980s. This is a close-up of a young woman. You can see the quality of the needlework that was done. Here is a heartbreaking one of two sisters. You can see the hockey sticks crossed at the bottom. They clearly like to play field hockey. And they were lost. They were killed. Here's Liam Ryan, who was killed, and a little boy named Brian Stewart, who was only 14 when he was killed. This is an abstract version of Northern Ireland, trying to give you the magnitude of loss. Each one of those tiny scraps of red represents the loss of somebody killed in the Troubles. And there are thousands of them. Okay, switching gears, we're now in the United States, and this is called Southern Heritage, Southern Shame. And it's a takeoff on the Billie Holiday song Strange Fruit, which you all probably know, which happens to have been written by a guy named Aaron Mirapol, who ended up adopting Julius and Ethel Rosenberg's little boys. This is all a wonderful web of good people reaching out to each other. And you can see there's not only do you see the dominant stars and bars of the Confederate flag, but you see a Ku Klux Klan hood and hanging victims of lynching. This is a quilt that was done in a South African prison where a supporter, an anti-apartheid supporter, was imprisoned. People brought her tiny scraps that she saved forever and ever and ever and put together that quilt. And she said it saved her sanity. And now we come to the mother of all protest quilts, and I don't think I have to tell anybody what it is, but I am going to. That's the AIDS quilt. The AIDS quilt differs from other quilts that we've seen, and the blocks are very big. They're always collaborative. They're intended to be coffin size. They're 6 feet by 2 or 3 feet, and there are hundreds of thousands of them. Here we have a more close-up picture of it. The previous picture is the last public showing that has ever been able to be done of the AIDS quilt in 1996. There are now too many squares. There are over 70,000. I think it's the largest public art piece that's ever been done in the history of the Western world. And going quickly forward, we go to the triangle, getting to the triangle fire. So that's the background of the barest background of quilting. This is people's idea of a sweatshop, and it is indeed a sweatshop. Early 20th century, little children working, poor light, poor ventilation, the whole thing. That's a picture of the two people who owned the triangle fire. It doesn't need to be there. And here are quilters. This is the triangle building. It's still standing. It's an NYU classroom building now. The triangle, I was hoping there would be a picture of the actual work floor of The Triangle Factory was a new factory. It was not a sweatshop. The building was only about 5 or 6 years old. It had standpipes. They had not been connected. The hoses rotted. It had a fire escape, and you'll see in a minute what happened with the fire escape. Sprinklers had been invented, but they were not required, so they weren't there. And this is all avoidable. The Triangle Fire operated, the Triangle Factory operated on the 8th, 9th, and 10th floor, the top 3 floors of the building. And that's what the fire escape looked like when people tried to escape on it. Not that it would have done them any good, because by the time of the Triangle Fire, building had happened all around the base of where the fire escape came down, and they would have come down into a closed courtyard with no escape anyhow. But it couldn't take the weight of the people who were trying to escape, so they fell. And 62 people chose to leap from the windows rather than be burned to death. I think this happened also in Tazreen. There's a concern about families being able to identify bodies. There's a concern about leaving some artifact so that you are recognizable. And there are lots and lots of those. The Triangle Factory fire happened on a sunny late March afternoon on a Saturday. It's a block east of Washington Square Park. The park was full of pleasure seekers, and everyone came running. And so there was a huge middle-class crowd, and the people who fell at their feet, and the streets ran with blood. And I don't know how to say this without making a horrible pun, but I think that has a lot to do with the impact that the Triangle Fire had. It was unforgettable. It was unavoidable. It was at your feet. It was there. So after all that, we get to this is the complete triangle quilt, which is a collaborative thing. Most of the portraits are either from family portraits or from tiny pictures from newspapers the day after the fire, like that. And I had a hell of a time enlarging them so that I could try to work on them, and then they would pixelate beyond recognition, and then I would fade them out and then color them back in with colored pencil and ink washes and acrylics and God knows what else. And sometimes you have family portraits. When Taslima was talking about taking family pictures and the pride of that, these are all immigrant kids, and they're really proud when they have their photos taken. It's a big deal. I mean, just take a look at that young woman's hat, and the stole over her arm. God knows where she got that. But the picture is an enormous statement of pride. And that's Rosie Oranger. That was her engagement picture. She was supposed to be married 2 weeks or so after the fire. That's Sam Lair. There were actually 17 boys and young men who were killed in the fire. And I am not an essentialist. I certainly, the Triangle Fire is a woman's issue, and it's a woman workers issue, and it's an immigrant women's workers issue. It's all those things. And those 17 young men worked there, and they died too. And I don't want them to be forgotten. That's Rosie Wiener. That was another very proud family photograph. That's what they look like after I enlarge them. And this then when Tazreen happened, and then Rana Plaza 5 months later, I knew that we needed a sister quilt, and I had a terrible time finding. Is that 30 seconds or 30? 30 minutes. Okay, I talk fast. I even online on Bangla language newspapers, I couldn't find the images that I wanted because, like the Triangle Fire, I didn't just want ugliness and horror. I wanted the beauty of the lives that had been lost. I wanted those wonderful young faces. I wanted those eyes. I couldn't find them. and I was really quite despairing of it. And then I went to a local chamber music concert where I live in Harlem, and I mentioned it to a neighbor of mine who's in her late 80s. She's a pioneer in the field of peace and gender studies and peace education, and she lives in the same building I live in. And I mentioned to her how despairing I was, and she said, let me see what I can do about that. And I think about 15 minutes later, as soon as we got home, a block and a half away, I started getting CCs from my friend Betty, who apparently is still friendly with every leader or every major figure in every women's rights organization in South Asia. And she would write and say, my friend has this project, here's what she wants to do, here's what she's looking for, do you know anybody? And they would write back, and they'd say, well, I don't, but maybe so-and-so does. And so I would write to so-and-so, and I would say, do you know? And they'd say, no, but maybe somebody else does. I actually made a flow chart so that I could tell who I was asking, who had referred me to whom. And eventually, I got to Taslima, and none of this would have been possible without the incredible generosity of Taslima, and I cannot thank her enough. In the fall of 13, I think, Taslima came to speak at the United Nations, and I had been in touch with her, and I bought a nice clean memory stick, and I met her at her hotel, and she plugged it into her laptop, and she gave me all her images. So all of these faces that you see are, they're almost all of them, like you've seen that before. They're from Taslima, almost nowhere else. I did use, again, there's text in this. There are Union songs in the Triangle Fire Quilt. Here, I used some things in Bangla, but also I used a lot of newspaper headlines, especially the New York Times. And some of them are so scathing that I actually contacted the lawyer at the Triangle Coalition who was doing pro bono work for us then, and I said to him, am I liable? These are really, really damning quotations. You can read that there. U.S. flaunts its own advice, etc., blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure there are tons of others. And he said, no, why should you be? It's public knowledge. If they're not ashamed of it, why should you be? So I went ahead with it. And you will notice that in something like this, and a lot of them you notice, it says missing, Nikhoj, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, and then it says it in Bangla. A lot, I noticed in the images that Taslima gave me, a lot of them were listed as Nikhoj, and I asked her what that meant in English, and she said missing, and I said, can I have it in Bangla? She was busy doing other things, but I found a colleague on the Triangle board who has a colleague at Hofstra University who's married to a guy from Bangladesh, and so I have it in Bangla too. I really wanted to have Bangla in here. I wanted it to be with the people of Bangladesh, not for the people of Bangladesh. And you will notice, I mean, this is one of the most heartbreaking ones for me, but this one too, you'll notice it's creased, it's crinkled, some of them have nail holes in them. If it makes you think of where are the missing after September 11th, 2001 in this country, there's a reason why it does. And I decided early on that what Taslima gave me, whatever was crinkled and creased and torn, that's what I was going to reproduce, that there wasn't going to be any cleanup at all. So that's a heartbreaking face. And here's another one also missing. I went out of my way to find beautiful fabrics for the borders of the quilt so that you can see it almost flows from her sari, from her headscarf. It flows around her. And here's a missing young man. And here, I think we're back to your own things. And that's the story.
Yeah.
When the two big quilts, they are. I should say I'm so happy that Taslima had the good sense to make her quilts a more reasonable size and somewhat more portable. The triangle quilt and the Bangladesh quilt are 10 feet wide and 7 feet high. I don't know why. It happened. It happened in a crowded Manhattan living room with 3 cats jumping on and off it. And I'm not an especially spiritual person, but it told me how big it needed to be. There was just a rightness about it. And I won't go back to the original, but there are, in the Triangle Fire, it's actually framed by 2 people who were not actually in there. Labor activists, major labor activists, both of them. And in the Bangladesh fire, the quilt, because it was still going on, because the outrage was missing, because Taslima was up against so much, because there was so much pain still there. I found it very hard at times to work on it, and I ended up putting up 4 living faces in there, one of which is Taslima, because they represented hope to me. And when those 2 giant quilts, a couple of years ago, they were up at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in one of the chapels, and they were facing each other. And honestly, I felt as though if you stood in between them, you could feel them talking to each other. There was the line of communication of what was done to them in New York in 1911 and in Dhaka in 2012, 2013 was so direct that it was palpable. So
Great.
I'm very glad we're doing this.
Great. Taslima, you want to tell us a little bit about the experience of working with the survivors?
Thank you, Robin. She shared about the process, that how we built this memorial quilt. In this year, I was thinking how we can observe the 5th anniversary of Rana Plaza collapse. And I shared with Robin that maybe we can make a quilt in our own way, not in a very USA type or European style. Because in Bangladesh, women are very used to in stitching quilt for their beloved person. So I thought maybe we can try in our own way. There are from different districts, women stitch different motifs. So maybe we can try to use this. So sometimes I was so hopeless, maybe I couldn't complete these things within few months. But Robin sent me long letters, emails, and pushed me and inspired me a lot. Sometimes I feel I couldn't complete it, but finally she make it possible, I think. She helped me. And she told me how to preserve how to protect the photo in clothes. So I used hairspray in clothes to preserve it. I learned it from Robin. And we started to talk with the survivors and the victims' family member. And we sit together, think together how to make this quilt. First, we think we will make small quilts. We gave family members to stitch it. They write text on small quilts. Usually in our country, working class people, they are not used to in writing text. So they are doing lots of spelling mistakes. Sometimes they ask me if I can do some correction, and I said it's not about correction, because maybe you can feel through this text their emotion, their anger, and other things. After making the small quills, we collected big quills from family members of victims, dead workers, and we put it on gamcha. Gamcha is a very local towel made by handloom machine. This red thing on the big orange color quilt, it's called gamcha, and we put all small quills into the gamcha. She is Shunnobala. She lost her son Sanjit, and he wrote Hare Ram, Hare Krishna. It's a spiritual thing, and she is from Hindu religion. And I put Sanjit's photo with Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, and another picture from a Muslim girl named Akhi, and her mother started text about some emotion about her daughter with Bismillah Rahman Rahim. It's about a Muslim things. So I try to show that when they were under the rubble, they were from Hindu, Muslim, and different castes, but they were tried each other to save each other. I asked one mother about her feeling because they are stitching on their beloved person, and one of dead workers' mother said it is very hard because they are stitching on their own beloved son or daughter. Sometimes it's very painful. At the same time, it is very powerful for them because they are taking part making in a process of a artwork through which they can be a part of this, and they can show their protest also with this. Here is Shomapti and Shantana, and this quilt made by Shantana's sister, Selina. She is now working as an activist. And in all quilts, we put a slogan that remember the dead, fight for the living. In Bangla, maybe you can see it. In English, it's remember the dead, fight for the living. I think it's a very strong slogan for us because now in our country there is a wage movement going on. And when I'm in front of all of you, I was feeling so bad because our government and owner, they have declared new minimum wage for garment workers. Maybe you know more than 4 million workers in our country, they are working as a garment workers, and 80% are women. And a big part of this product goes to Europe and America market. And at the same time, when I was feeling so bad because our government is declared the new wage, we demanded $190 gross wage for month, but our government declared only $90. Before it was like $63. So when I'm here just on 13th, they have declared. At the same time, I feel good that I'm in front of those people who are wearing T-shirt made by Bangladeshi garment workers who maybe don't know much more about the story behind that T-shirt, how our young workers, young heroes are working hard, struggling hard for making your T-shirt. And maybe we can talk about something about the responsibilities of consumer, about the responsibilities of brands and buyers also in the moment. I think it is also important for workers' rights. This is from 5th anniversary of Rana Plaza collapse. Maybe you are thinking why I'm working about garment workers, or as a middle class, why I involve myself with working class people. I don't think that I'm a rescuer or I'm a helper of them. I think I'm a part of this movement because when the garment workers, they are raising some issue about their wage, their safety, trade union. These issues are somehow involved with involved with our other issue also, like these issues are involved with the issue of democratic transition issue of Bangladesh, and more than 80% workers are women, and it's a new thing that a new women labor force are emerging through this garment factory. So I'm interested about this. I don't think it's a issue of garment workers. It's an issue of all citizens of Bangladesh, and it's not only about a local issue, it's a global issue. So when I'm in front of you, I want to share with you that as a consumer, you should know about the story about your t-shirt, and you can give pressure on brands, buyers who take the lion part of profit from their hard work. So if they cut their profit a little bit, maybe our worker can get much more good life. So I think through my photo, through my activity, I try to raise some point about garment workers, about our country. I don't want to show garment workers all the time as a victim of system. I also want to show their strength, because they are human beings. They are all the time struggling. They are surviving their life. So I like to show their strength also, not just as a victim, as a poor people. I'm looking grant or looking fund or looking rescuer from Europe, USA. Don't like that. I want to say something about our workers who are really struggling hard for all of us. So thank you.
I think we have time for a few questions. If anyone has questions. Wait for the mic.
There's a national election, I believe, in December of this year in Bangladesh.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that can change anything for the workers, or it will have no effect at all?
I don't think so, because our last experience of election is not so good. Who is now running the power? Maybe they want to stay forever, and they don't want to listen any other opposition voice. And last time, when in 2014 the last election happened, that time the opposition party, they didn't participated, and the situation was so bad and people was in fear. They also didn't go for giving vote. This time also we are not sure that what kind of election is going to be happen. So the main ruling party, they are trying to spread fear in all over the country. They arrested the international renowned photographer, my colleague and teacher Shahidul Alam, and they denied the bail of Shahidul Alam. And there is different kind of protests going on in our country, like for safe road. School kids, they started a movement just months ago. And from very first, government welcomed this, and they tried to stop this when the kids started to ask the system of state. That time they tried to somehow stop the protest. So many things are going on, and they very quickly declared the wage. I think these are also related with election, but I'm not sure workers are going to get something from this election. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today. And I feel like it is my first time to see garments workers' rights being presented in an art form, which is quilting, because usually we see it in media, in articles, in photographs, and news stories. And I think, to the both of you, what do you think is the unique impact of presenting in this medium, and how do you look forward to this art form furthering in its impact of educating people about garment workers?
I think, honestly, off the top of my head, it the impact of using quilting as a vehicle of protest and memorialization and documentation, it goes beyond garment workers. It goes throughout the entire capitalist system. There are workers all over the world who are oppressed and don't know what to do and have no vehicle, have no voice. And this, the project Taslima has done so magnificently with them is only the beginning, I hope. And workers throughout the world will learn that they can do this too. And that's pretty idealistic. I know that. I'm sorry. But
Taslima, maybe you can say something about how you displayed the quilts at the site of the collapse. Tell us about that.
When we finally finished the memorial quilt, then we think we should do the exhibition in front of the place where the collapse happened. So we organized an exhibition in front of Rana Plaza collapse, and we got many audience from local people and from workers. They went that place, they participated in the exhibition, and we organized another exhibition for middle class audience also, but first we thought we should make it in front of Rana Plaza for those people who were under the rubble and the victim's family, and to aware the workers who are alive and who are struggling inside the factory. Maybe they can get scope to see it. So we organized the first exhibition in front of Rana Plaza, and it's a workers area. Yeah.
A lot of questions.
Just quickly, in answer to somebody's question here, when the quilts were in St. John the Divine, for 6 months, facing each other, there was a stream of people who simply did not know the stories before and simply would not have known about it. And so that medium, because it was an art medium, an art form, brought this information to countless other people who would not have known the stories. So there's a great benefit to it.
Great, thank you.
Hi, thank you for speaking, both of you. I actually work in the garment industry in New York, and I actually do work directly with some of the, not the sewers, but the liaison between me and the sewers. What can I do as being not just a consumer, but working for these large fashion companies who don't take responsibility or don't even want to acknowledge that I know what's going on? What can I do to help that? How can I get involved? Or just anyone that wants to get involved?
I think as a consumer or as a garment workers, you can raise this issue because a big part of the product from Bangladesh came to USA and Europe. So if you know much more about the story behind the t-shirt which made by Bangladeshi garment workers, maybe you will find your way how you can do something for this. I think you can find your way, but you can make pressure on owners, brands, international brands buyer, which is very important. And at the same time, I think after Rana Plaza collapse, I saw from different corner of the world, different cultural activists, they organize many things. Maybe we can make a solidarity bridge which will help us to do something more for our workers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Taslima is also a little bit shy about this, but you can come up to her afterward and ask her how you can support her organization in Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you so much for speaking. So I think this, the idea of quilts and photography, like basically forms of art as activism, is really interesting idea. I wanted to ask, what is it about art that gives a voice or exposure of power to activism or movements?
I think about this a lot, about why we're doing what we're doing and what good are we doing. And I guess my answer would be, if art weren't powerful, you wouldn't find throughout history that every tyrant, every dictator, right or left, has gone after its writers and its artists and its musicians. So there is something about the power of art, even if we can't articulate it in nice little PowerPoint bullet points. There is something there that dictators are afraid of. So that's it. In 1968, when there was a coup of right-wing generals colonels rather, in Greece. I don't know if anybody has heard of Mikos Theodorakis. I mean, he was a leading songwriter in Greece. And his songs were not revolutionary songs. They were popular songs. They were love songs. They were pretty sappy, wonderful music. But he was a communist. And you could get arrested on the streets of Athens for walking down the street and whistling a Mikos Theodorakis song. No words, just whistles. And that was enough. Something was powerful. No.
Do we have time for more? Or
Hi, thank you, Taslima and Robin, for sharing your wisdom. I was curious, Taslima, with the project, obviously you've only got a couple of the quilts here. What was the scale of the final project, the number of quilts and the time frame that these were created?
Can you repeat?
The time frame and the number of quilts that were created for the communal project?
We have made 5 quilts, and it takes at least 2 months. But we are thinking about this quilt more than 5 months, but we finally finished it within 2 months, yes.
Great. Thank you both. This was so wonderful. And I want to mention that if you're interested in learning more about the Magnum Foundation or the Remember the Triangle Fire Coalition or Taslima's organization, you can come up to us and ask us now. I also have a sign-up sheet on the info desk outside of the space, and you can write your name and indicate what you'd like to hear about as well. So thanks again to you both. This is wonderful.
You.